Throughout the first couple of days in the UK, I noticed Kim, Leanne, Anna, and I were commenting on several signs we had noticed in the places we were visiting. Some of the signs included mind the gap, mind your head, and mind your step. It wasn't until Leanne suggested that the Englishman might be a little paranoid that I really started to analyze why things are the way they are, why the people do the things they do, and why the signs say the things they say. For instance, in London, we were walking to the British Museum, and I started to feel a little hungry. I decided I would eat an apple. Once I finished my apple, I began my search for the nearest trash can. Thinking that the streets would be similar to Raleigh, I was sure there would be one nearby. We walked for about 5 minutes when I noticed there wasn't a trash can to be found. My only option was to walk into a store and specifically ask to use a clerk's trash can. After sharing my trash can dilemma with the girls, we came to the conclusion that London is an enormous city and there is a large fear of being bombed. Maybe they are afraid that a terrorist is going to place a bomb in a trash can, so they shouldn't make them readily accessible in the city. I have noticed that there are far more trash cans throughout Guildford, but Guildford isn't nearly as big as London, which probably makes it less of a threat to terrorism. At the end of our journey in London, Kim, Leanne, Anna, and I became groundlings at the Globe Theatre. We had anticipated seeing Anne Boleyn since we had bought our tickets, which was before we even arrived in the UK. My first view of the large circular white building was breathtaking. I had been waiting for my turn to visit the Globe since 7th grade when my English teacher described his experience there. The play began with the characters greeting the crowd, giving the groundlings more personal conversation than those with the seats. Everything was off to a great start. It wasn't until after intercession that I experienced the most peculiar incident. One of the attendants came up to Kimberly and asked about a book bag that was close to her. Kimberly politely informed the lady that the bag was not hers but could possibly belong to a young couple that was standing against the stage in front of us. The attendant immediately scurried off and we thought nothing of the event. About 5 minutes later the attendant reappeared, but this time she had her boss with his handheld walkie-talkie. The man examined the bag, being careful not to touch it, and looked at the woman with a rather panicked face. They were both pointing to the bag and looking around as if there was an explosive or something dangerously wrong with the unidentified bag. Within a minute or two, the young couple turned around and identified their bag as their own, and the attendants went on their way. Interestingly enough, the attendant failed to ask anyone near us if the bag belonged to them, and instead assumed the worst and immediately ran to higher authorities. If she would have just asked the other people surrounding us if the bag belonged to them, she could have saved herself and her boss from a little paranoia. Throughout the rest of our trip, I started to notice more examples of how paranoid the British people seem to be about bombers or terrorists. For instance, on one of the doors in our dorm, there is a sign that says, "This door left open could kill you. This door closed could save your life. Keep fire doors shut." My initial thought about this sign was that it was very blunt. I almost felt as though the British people were trying to scare anyone staying in the dorm so that they would keep the door closed at all times. In America, our signs simply state what authorities would like to be done. For example, the sign on the door might simply state, "Keep the fire door shut at all times." I think this is enough to state your point, considering the door here at the dorm is heavy and automatically shuts once somebody lets go of it. Another sign I noticed appeared at both St. Paul's Cathedral and in Portsmouth. The sign said, "Please report any abandoned property or suspicious activity." I can sometimes be a forgetful person, especially when I'm in a hurry, and will forget a personal belonging. I would think I'm not the only person that this has happened to before, or that this will happen to in the future. And when it does, I would like to retrieve my item instantly instead of having to get hassled by authorities who believe my bag is some type of threat to the area. It is completely acceptable to have a sign that asks the public to report any suspicious activity, but the part about abandoned property is quite absurd. Overall, when I think about some of the discussions I had with Leanne, Kim, and Anna, as well as some of the observations and experiences I have had throughout my time here in England, I have come to the conclusion that Englishmen can be quite paranoid about terrorism. I understand that no one wants their city to be bombed, but the United States doesn't go to nearly the extent that the Englishmen do with their paranoia. Whatever the case, I am thankful to England for a safe journey and the wonderful experiences I have had throughout the trip.